and welcome to Rolling with Reviews. I'm Will, and with me is my fellow egghead,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a review of Wingspan. Sarah, tell us a little bit about this game.
All right, Wingspan is a engine and tableau building game of attracting birds to habitats. So we should probably talk about why we got the game.
Well, first off, it's a design by Elizabeth Hargrave, which we love her designs, and we check out quite a few. In fact, there's going to be another game coming up that she also did that we played soon after this.
Yes.
Also, Stonemaier Games, we also love the quality of their components, and they usually have something really interesting to offer, including this theme. This theme is very, very different.
The theme is just, it's like a breath of fresh air, and it's just so nice to see something different, and it's not another, colonial game or something like that.
Right.
Also, though, it does have mechanisms that we really enjoy, such as engine building and tableau building. So with all of that combined, this looked like a great option for us. So let's talk about why we do like this game. And, well, theme and art. I'll talk a bit about this since Will doesn't really look at the art so much. The art is by Beth Sobel and a whole host of, I really should have pulled it out.
I think at this point it's a flock of artists.
Yes, it's a flock of artists, and I feel bad for just naming one person when there's so many wonderful, amazing artists in here, and I just forgot to pull the whole list out. So I just love the art, seeing all these different birds, and 171 unique cards means 171 unique birds, and that's just amazing to me. I mean, I don't know anything about birds, and I'm learning stuff about birds. Some of them have the weirdest names, and I'm like, is this a real thing? And, well, obviously it is a real thing.
I think the book has factoids on the various birds.
Well, the cards themselves will have little factoids about them, and it tells you what region they're in, their wingspan, which can be important mechanically, but it's also just an interesting thing to find out. And a lot of the abilities are based on the type of bird they are. So like a predator will eat other birds, and so the mechanics are, it will catch a bird of a certain wingspan. So theme and the art just really shines through and just what really pulls me towards this game.
Yeah. And then one thing I really like is just the mechanics, the combos going off. Because when they do, it feels very rewarding. Just to see from a very simple action, there's a reason why as the game goes on, you lose player pieces to the round board. So in a round, you have less and less to work with. However, you're still doing more and more as you've augmented your various habitats.
Right.
So seeing that play out is very interesting, very fun, and it's a nice game balance there.
Yeah, the gameplay is very engaging, and I guess I'm going to go back to aesthetics because I really love the little eggs that they come with. They come with so many different colors. I mean, there's just green and pink. There's also blue and purple, and the expansions add more colors of eggs. And color of eggs doesn't matter at all, but it's nice to see that there's a variety of colors for, like, I'm going to claim the blue every single time.
Yes, every single time.
Hey, you don't really care what color they are, right?
It doesn't actually matter.
So there's a lot that we really like about the game. I love the combos when they work, which leads us to what we don't like about the game.
Yeah, so this base game specifically, there are issues when it comes to what I would call the opportunity costs. In order to set up for something, you might need a certain resource or a certain number of cards in your hands to get the maximum benefit. That balance is different from bird to bird. Some birds, it does all the setup for you. It needs an egg to trigger. Well, it's going to trigger in the spot that gives you eggs, so it feels super powerful. Other ones rely on you rolling dice that are outside the bird feeder. There can be nothing outside the bird feeder. So it's a complete timing game with that one. It might be mathematically equal, in terms of averages as to the benefit, but it feels very restrictive on most cases.
Yes.
And if you're just not set up for it, the combo won't go off.
Yes, I guess for me to piggyback off that, which I agree with completely, is that playing cards and using specific effects require a lot of resources. And this game feels really tight when it comes to giving you the resources you need. So if there's an ability that you can trigger by discarding a card or tucking a card under it, but that card comes from your hand, the opportunity to get cards in this base game, and we will talk about the expansions in the expansion videos. In the base game, it's really difficult. It's difficult to get extra food. It's difficult to have extra eggs on hand to pay for costs. And so the few cards you might get that actually give you something for what feels like free, because you just activate it and, oh, you draw a card, or, oh, you get a worm from the supply. It piggybacks on that opportunity cost of getting a worm from the supply is always a guaranteed thing versus roll the dice, and if any worms roll, gain those worms. Okay, yes, you have the chance or the opportunity of getting more worms. You also have the chance of getting 0 worms. And in this tight economy, that can be very frustrating that you can't get what you need to get these card combos to work.
Yeah, when we first started playing this game, we realized, oh, there's a little bit of engine building in here. Well, there's quite a bit of engine building here if the right cards come out, which, again, is kind of a weird thing with the combos not happening. But when it does, it was giving us a weird feeling of, I can see a lot of stuff happening, but what I want to happen, I don't have enough control over. Mm-hmm. And when we really started analyzing it after a few plays, it was because we were coming at the game with the wrong mindset. Engine buildings typically fall under 2 types of categories. There's the purpose intentional ones, like Dominion or Card Kingdoms of Valeria, where you have the options out in front of you. You choose, oh, I want a combat-oriented one, so I'm going to pick out the combat cards. Or it's the opportunity one, like
Race for
the Galaxy, mm-hmm. where you grab a whole bunch of stuff, see what you have, and then make the best of it.
Yes.
Ascension also is a good example if we're talking about deck builder compared to like Dominion.
Right.
It's just the opportunity is there, and that's what Wingspan is. In fact, Elizabeth said that she was inspired by Race for the Galaxy.
Yes, I didn't hear that directly from her, but I heard it from a podcast who had heard it from her or read something she said. Anyways, from a very secondhand source, this is apparently more inspired by Race for the Galaxy. And once we heard that, then it clicked. It's like, oh, we're the problem here.
Right.
We're coming at this from the wrong perspective. The reason we're so frustrated is this isn't the type of engine building we thought it was. But that doesn't mean it's a bad engine building game.
Yeah, in fact, as we clicked our minds into the right mindset, we had a lot more fun playing the game.
Right.
I started winning the game.
That was actually something kind of surprising because up to that point I had relatively dominated, and then that just switch flipped completely and he just bowled right over me.
Yes, so it's very important to understand that this is an opportunistic engine building game. You have no guarantees because just like if you went out and bird watch, you have no idea what birds you're going to see out there.
Right, just because they're in that habitat doesn't mean they're there that day or just whatever it is. They could have flown to another neighborhood or whatever, so yeah.
Yeah, so keep that in mind, and you won't have the initial stumbling block we did getting into this game.
And on that vein, we also have issue with the bonus cards. Again, it's that opportunity. The bonus cards say there are 24% of the cards in the deck have this thing. But because, especially in a 2-player game, we only saw 18% of the cards, Well, 18% of the cards that you see may not have that 24% of the whole deck. And so that can be frustrating because if you need to get 4 or 5 birds of a certain type and you just literally never see them, you're like, why is there a bonus card? I'm not getting any points from this, where your opponent could be just randomly having an easier time because the birds they need are coming up. So I think this is again where we had to reframe our perspective. And again, where I haven't quite fully grasped it, because that's one of the reasons I think I lost the last game that we played, is I focused too much on trying to achieve that goal or the bonus card points, that I put out lower value birds. And he was like, I have terrible bonus cards, so I'm just going to put out high power or high value birds.
Yeah, and because I did that is the first time I won handily and broke 100 points, which was very, very rare for us.
Although that was because we played the expansion.
Oh, that's
so
true. That's
we'll
true.
have to talk about that more in the expansion. But just on a base level, when it comes to the bonus cards, I wouldn't say ignore them completely, but don't orient your whole goal to trying to get those points, because most of the time they're not going to be worth it. Now, if you have a choice,
Right.
and one of those choices is for your goal, and it's not a worse choice than the other choice, like if you've got a 2 value bird and you could play out a 7 value bird, I think you should probably make sure that putting out that 2 value bird either gives you a benefit, an ability, or something, or really works for that goal, because when it comes down to it, sometimes the straight points are just better.
Yes.
I think we talked about everything, because again, or did we talk on the playing cards and effects? Yeah, it feels more expensive.
Yeah,
we talked about that. So we do have some issues, obviously, with this. Some of them were our own biases, so that's kind of a point where sometimes playing too many games can actually be a negative, because you come into a game with preconceived notions of, because it's labeled X, like it has this mechanism and this mechanism.
Or it's compared to this game or
Yes.
that game.
And so sometimes having those biases can be bad, because you think it's going to be one thing and it's not. I mean, general knowledge, that's still usually a really good thing, but this game is so accessible that I'm not saying you need to have been a gamer forever to like this game. I think there's a reason this game has sold 1 million copies, is because it is so...
Yeah, a lot of people are playing it with their older parents, and it's still a heavy game.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, but because it's so approachable, it's easy to get those non-gamers, those family members in on this and still have a good time.
Agreed.
Especially if you upgrade all the components. Like,
Yep.
I mean, it just makes them cuter. Plus, playing with eggs is fun.
As long as you don't play it during Easter and have the little Easter eggs right next to the eggs.
Oh, like the little malt ball
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do that.
No, that wasn't a malt ball. All right, so we're ready for our review. So here at Rolling with Reviews, we each have 1d6 worth of ratings to give. 1 is low, 6 is high. We give our number and a reason why. Then we add those two numbers together and see what it rolled for us. Sarah, what did Wingspan roll for you?
It rolled a 4. I love the art. I love the theme. That's what really gets me to come back to this game. Like we've talked about, some of the mechanisms I struggle with the bottlenecking and the tight resources. So right now I'm still at the idea of really loving the concept of the mechanisms, but not yet fully in love with how the mechanisms work. So people should watch our expansion videos, because those expansions might change my mind.
Interesting. So for me, I also gave it a 4. Pretty much for the same reasons. This game does a lot of things right.
Yes.
I just want a few other things to be not so tight. To essentially make me feel like I have a little bit more agency and less that I'm fighting for every feather and bird out there.
Yep.
Plus, there are a few issues in which, because like some of the abilities are so tight, certain abilities in the game that aren't so tight, people feel, well, it's completely unbalanced. They're not wrong,
Yeah.
but at the same token, I don't want to take those out because those are how I want the game to go. So it still has a few issues where I could see improvements, and hopefully the expansions give me what I want. But for the time being, just as the base game, definitely a 4.
All right.
So between the two of us, it rolled an 8 out of 12.
So it's still a really good game, and one I definitely recommend checking out if you like the theme. If any of the mechanisms sound interesting, I just really think it is a good game, and it is one I will still recommend. Again, we don't think it's terrible, obviously not. There's just, again, our own personal biases for what we want out of the game. We want a more open, flowing, combo-rific game of, wow, I really did something. Look, my board is full of birds. And sometimes when we play the base game, I'm like, wow, I barely got any birds out on my board. And so that can be a little frustrating, but still love it.
Yes, I think it just comes down to I want to see more.
Yes.
And the base game, it's sometimes really hard to see more. In fact, I know there are birds we haven't seen.
Yes.
And we've played it a number of times.
Yeah.
So it's just a little frustrating.
Yeah.
So that will do it for us here at Rolling with Reviews. If you want to get a hold of us, you can check out any of our social media platforms at
Rolling with 2, that's TWO. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. On YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And we've been Rolling with Reviews.